Om Shanti, 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 Om. Welcome to Satsang. Nice to see you all. If you'd like to speak to the group, turn on your microphone. Or you can put something in the chat if you have something you'd like to share with the group.
Thank you. Thank you, Rishiji, for organizing this. And thank you for holding us in your presence.
My pleasure.
There is a feeling arising that there's a deepening in the perception, and there's more and more space. But it does not completely allow me still to be detached from emotional pain if it is arising, or sometimes being in an environment where there's a lot of mind energy. I can still feel and even identify, and then subsequently I feel, oh my God, that was not me, but it's just this vigilance is sometimes not that strong as don't know how to express this, but just in a way I would like to fully surrender to this process and to God. And it seems I sometimes feel guilty as there's not enough space during the day at times just to sit quietly, or if strong emotions are coming, I still feel that despite the inquiry, it still comes, and then it takes me some time out to come back again to this presence, and just a strong wish to come out of this repeating patterns. And this is, Muji was telling the story of a monk who was so detached that when he came to a Japanese or Zen monastery, and what was still triggering him to identify was a twig. So it
Yes.
would fall, and
Yes.
then, and I just feel that this twig is still coming back, and there's like an inner comment. So now you should learn your lesson, but you still seem to be triggered by the same twig again and again. And even this is seen, but yeah, just wanted to expose this in a way.
Yes.
Happening. Thank you.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for sharing. This is a question, this is a comment actually, that's been coming up a lot in the last week or so among the satsang. So I think this is a wave going through the consciousness of being right now. For those of you who don't know this Zen story that Muji Baba uses quite frequently, the story is the story of a monk, a very devout monk, very strong practitioner, sitting many years in a monastery or wherever, but someone with a deep sense of stillness, who loves to go out in the morning into the Zen garden. And he has a favorite rock that he likes to sit on because it gives him an expansive view of the garden, which is raked with all these beautiful lines and so beautifully done. And everything is so still and so pristine. So he loves to go there, close his eyes and sit there in the peacefulness of being. One morning, there is a tree. The tree is always there, but one morning, as he is sitting, he's enjoying this beautiful garden, the pristine quality of this beautiful space. He closes his eyes, goes into samadhi, and then the wind blows. Because the wind blows, one leaf from this tree blows across the Zen garden and falls on the sand in front of him. So now the perfection of this beautiful garden has a leaf sitting in the center. As soon as the leaf comes and hits the ground, is sitting in his pristine state of awareness, and one eye goes. And this shows that though he is alert, there is this wakefulness around this disturbance, and that his natural state of peace and calm is immediately disturbed. This is a beautiful story. This happens for all of us, doesn't it? Whether it's a single leaf or it's a whole cyclone going around us, doesn't matter. But something that has been coming up frequently is what you describe, Atmavidya. For people, this has been coming up recently. And this is this, despite a strong intention to remain centered in and as the self, one is still withdrawn, is still attracted out into the various phenomena that are going on in one's life, especially if one is active and busy throughout the day. So I would just encourage you to continue to keep this strong intention to remain as the center of being in whatever space you're in whatever situation you're in. This intention is sort of the root or the foundation for the inquiry itself, because this intention, when something else is occupying attention, this intention will have a tendency to bring up this question, who or what, in those circumstances where we tend to get pulled outside, if you will, of the self. We are never outside of the self, but in the way you describe it, it feels like this. So by keeping this intention to return, if you will, to the center of being, even after we've been pulled out, we strengthen this as another tendency, where before the tendency has been here to allow ourselves to just move out into the objects, into the emotions, into the thoughts, into the experiences, without regard for being pulled out of center, just to get lost in them. This is the tendency of conditioning before we begin sadhana. But as we begin sadhana, as we go through the days, weeks, months, and years of doing this inquiry, of asking, who is pulled out? To whom does this thought come? To whom does this emotion arise? What is aware here in this circumstance? By doing this, we begin to put another foundation in place. One of the secrets, though, to this foundation becoming stronger and more permanent is to begin to let go of all judgment around this happening, to see this movement outward, if you will, or this drawing of the attention outward by the objects, by the experiences, by the thoughts, by the emotions, as just conditioning, as something which is happening quite naturally as a consequence of the momentum, you can say, of conditioning. And to make our peace with the fact that that happens. This is very important. If we don't make peace with the fact that our conditioning rises and we see some consequence of that conditioning arising, if we don't do that, we tend to be overly harsh with ourselves, in our mind, in our heart. We tend to be impatient. These kinds of feelings will and can and do come up. The more helpful recognition when this is happening or has happened is that, oh, now I see. I see what has happened. I see how long it lasted. I see that I've been drawn out. I can feel in the body mind the disturbance this has created. But because I can see that, I know now I am back in awareness itself. I am back in my natural clarity. This is an opportunity to experience the joy of knowing that in this moment, I am here. I'm no longer, is the attention flowing outward. It flowed out as long as it needed to. Now it is over. Forget it. With the recognition, I am back. That which is aware is here now, even though it was disturbed before. And the fact that there was some disturbance there before says nothing whatsoever about the natural state of pristine awareness, which is your true nature. This awareness, this consciousness, this infinite being is not affected by your conditioning, the conditioning that seems to arise. It's not affected by your opinions of what it means when conditioning arises. Your natural state is being, consciousness. Being consciousness in its pristine state is that state or that way of being which you are craving and longing for when something calls you away, when attention goes out, even dramatically. It's necessary for you, however, to have sufficient discrimination about what is happening in the complex of body-mind to know what is conditioning and what is clarity. So this is the opportunity that rises when you feel drawn away, when you feel distracted. The opportunity that arises is that when you come back, you can know this is clarity. In order to do that, you have to let go of all of your opinions about how you have failed, or you have not understood it, or you didn't get it, or you did it wrong again. All of these mental opinions that have been cultivated over a lifetime, cultivated from your experience within your own being, cultivated from parents, cultivated from the world around you, cultivated from teachers in school and so on. It says you are not quite enough, or you don't quite possess the ability to understand what is going on here in some way. This is just not true. So it becomes important for us at some point to have sufficient discrimination to know, this is conditioning. I am not that. And to do this very quickly and very easily. Some people still are carrying around, and there's been a couple of conversations in the last couple of weeks with people. Some people are still carrying around this idea that if something which I judge to be less than enlightened rises in this body mind, that somehow I have to discover what is the meaning of this? What is the root of this? How did this happen? What happened here? How did I get to this place? It's simpler than that, my friends. It's much simpler than that. Simply know that is not me. That is just conditioning. I am that which is aware here now, saw that conditioning, and laughed at it, knowing that this is just the dance of mind. This is the dance of conditioning. The truth is always here. Your nature is being consciousness. You know your nature in that moment of clarity, not in that moment of conditioning. So why not abandon conditioning altogether whenever it comes up? Don't identify with it. Don't need to find the root of it. Just abandon it. Not this, not this. Yes, some of you have heard me talk about this in the teaching. There's this teaching that's called neti neti. Not this, not this. And this implies a very simple and direct way of dealing with this kind of conditioning, and that is to simply swat it away with your own clarity. I am not this, and not this. That which is aware is here now as this pristine awareness, which is open, loving, compassionate, kind, not only toward oneself, but toward all beings. This is your nature. Return to this, let go quickly. This is the way. Thank you for bringing that up, Atmavidya. This has come up in a couple of conversations, so this is good to talk about again from time to time. Some of you will say, well, we talk about this all the time, but this is the center of the sadhana, isn't it?
Thank you.
So Kamal says, someone asked me, did you meet Yogi Ram Sarat Kumar in his physical body? No, I did not, Kamal. He was before my time in Tiru. Yeah. But those of you who have been to Tiru and maybe have had the opportunity to visit Yogi Ram Sarat Kumar temple and ashram, you know that just like Sri Bhagavan, the presence of this master is quite strong there. So one walks in and has the sense, just from the quality of the atmosphere, the quality of the devotion of the devotees who are living and working there, that the presence of this great being can be felt in much the same way as when one walks into the samadhi room in Ramana ashram. There's a very strong presence of these great masters many years after their physical bodies have passed away. This is also true. I visited samadhis of other great sages in India. This is also true of many great sages. Neem Karoli Baba, his samadhi, very powerful place in Nainital. Anandamoyi Ma in Haridwar, same, very, very strong presence of these great sages and great saints. And this shows us, tells us, gives us the direct experience that these great beings have opened their heart fully to the full experience of life and living as the divine. Most of us are still in some way walking around feeling separate, feeling distinct, feeling other. But when you walk into the space of a great sage, there's an immediate heart opening that happens. That heart is always there in that space. It is our heart which needs to open more in order to feel their being, their awareness, their consciousness. And when that happens, where there's this recognition that we are standing in the presence of this great being. The body is not necessary for this. This great being, there is only one. It has various manifestations at different times and in different places for the sake of humanity. This great heart opening happens. So stepping into the place where this great being has spent many hours, days, years, provides for us this direct connection in the heart with being, consciousness, and bliss. And we feel this very directly. The great, I think the great gift of spending time with masters, I've done this quite a lot in my life. Some of you also have. For me has always been that there's an opportunity to see within this great being the playfulness and the delight, which is the open heart. When we have contact with a great being only through books and only through in an intellectual or conceptual way, studying the teaching and so on, this provides a very firm foundation for us knowing how to navigate through our own sadhana, which is very great this way. But the playfulness, the delight, the love, the compassion of a great being, when it's encountered directly and in person, this also causes another great opening in the heart. So this is always good. This is always a delight. It's a little bit more difficult for us now, isn't it? We are very grateful, though, for Zoom, because Zoom does give us this opportunity to be with people, to be with each other, to experience each other. Because each of you brings some aspect of this loving kindness and compassion. Just your being here, joining together in this intention to live in this way, to share your life in this way with others who are on this path. This is a great blessing. And though we often can't be together in the way we would prefer, by being dedicated to the satsang, to being together as awareness itself. You give a great blessing to all who come, because being consciousness, this truth is always present in you and as you. And as we join together, you may have some idea about why you are here, what it is you're looking for, what it is you might get, what it is you might discover. But the true meaning of your being here and opening your heart to this moment is that the great truth that you are shines through whatever you think you are going through at this moment. What I see, what I feel, what everyone feels from you is this recognition: I am the self, and I know this. This knowledge is transcendent to all questions, transcendent to all answers. That which is here now, as all of us, one whole being, consciousness and bliss. So Rishi says, this morning I experienced a pulling back, in quotes, of self into a larger picture. So this is small self, small s, into self, large S. It was as though my life seemed to be a frequency of no particular value or importance. Self was there, part of it. Now I'm playing with the equipment, excuse me. I can't get this to move. Risha, can you read this? Can you tell me this again? Self was there, part of it, but awareness was the totality. And that's as far as I can see. What comes after that?
In the bigger picture, it seemed that this life became a neutral, almost a mathematical frequency. If there was anything like bliss, it was just a sense of being.
Yes. Beautiful. Absolutely.
And immediately that didn't last long. It was beautiful and it was wonderful. And then here I am back in the body again. And I got to thinking, well, first of all, I wanted to tell everybody, well, our life is just kind of a joke. I mean, it really doesn't, it isn't what it seems like it is at all. And, tell the clerk at the grocery store, no, wait, it's kind of fun. But then I got to thinking that even this wonderful meditation that we share together, that leads to this sense of understanding about awareness. I mean, even it is of very little consequence in a certain way when compared with awareness that is.
With infinite consciousness, yes. Yes. So first of all, let me say that these glimmers of truth, of recognition of who I am in the totality, not in the particular, not in the individual, they provide for us the motivation, if you will, to see I am not these other things. So this is a beautiful thing, because this is what keeps us in our sadhana, keeps us looking inward, pulling back from that outward tendency of conditioning. So this is beautiful. So yes, very happy, very joyful for you that you have had this experience. But also I want to say, keep going. Because not that there is really anywhere to go. Once you've had this glimpse, there is this recognition that this is the truth. And as you said, everything else is just secondary to it. Everything else is just that individualistic small self. So this me-ness that I talk about a lot. And so this becomes less important now, but it still takes some time, if you will, or some effort, small amount, to cultivate a firm recognition that this is the truth, and it is always the truth, and that whatever you do is really of little consequence. The reason I say wonderful and keep going is because there is something ahead of you, which is this recognition that this totality, this infinite consciousness is here now, and it is always here. When this fully flowers, whatever you look at in this dance of the little self, or in the dance of the world, is recognized fully to still be that. So now there is this recognition that all that there is here is the totality. That is true, not only in these moments of ultra clear vision, we can say, which you experienced this morning, but in your ordinary walking around waking state, this recognition that all of this, everything that is here, everyone that is here, every experience you are having, every moment of silence you are having, this is all that totality. Now the heart bursts open with love for oneself, for the world, for the suffering of the world, for all those beings who are suffering. This recognition even that this suffering that we have tended to experience in our own lives in the past, or maybe experiencing now, is still a beautiful, beautiful thing. It is all rising in the mind of God, if you will. It is not happening to me. It is not happening to them. It is not happening to the world. This is all rising within the totality of being. And when this recognition is firm and deep, all one feels for this whole circumstance is love and compassion. And one lives fully in the midst of this. There's no need for separating oneself out, for leaving anything, for dropping anyone, for leaving anything behind. There is this recognition that all of this is that. And whatever is here for only one reason, for me to love it, for me to acknowledge it, for me to give attention of the true self to that which even appears as limited. Once we awaken to the truth of our own being, this is not a static moment like we have with an experience. Oh, on this date, this happened. Blah, 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 whatever the story is about that. Once awakening has occurred, and this awakening to truth is here, even if it's only occurred for a moment, we can't go back to holding on to those static moments anymore, because now we are in the consciousness of ever-expanding awareness. Often in the literature, a moment of awakening or enlightenment, as it's called, is referred to as though in that moment there was this recognition, and then forever there is this static moment that lasts. But what the sages speak of is not, they often speak of experiences like the one you had this morning, where you go from the small self into the totality. They speak of those moments with great devotion, with great love. They speak of them as pivotal moments, but then they also speak about the expanding nature of this awareness. It goes on and on. The deeper recognition that that which you are, unborn, undying, truth, that this is always informed by whatever is here. Your understanding and your knowledge will deepen and grow day by day. Thank you for sharing that, Risha. The great value of this kind of experience, though it even seems like it maybe is only momentary, is that that experience, because it is so crystal clear, it's never forgotten. So now, whatever comes, just comes naturally, but is always against the backdrop of that experience. And what happens eventually is that that backdrop becomes the foreground, and there's a switch that happens. Now there, without even looking, there is a recognition that this totality is the space in which everything else is rising. Prior to that, everything is happening, it is going on, things are happening, and then the totality shines through all of that cloudiness, if you will. And we say, oh, well, that's different. But as we deepen in recognition, what happens is that recognition becomes the screen on which everything else appears. And we never lose sight of the screen. So Know that that's who you are at all times. And it will come back to you over and over.
Rishiji, can I ask you something?
Yes, please.
When you say some things, right now what you're saying, that it comes back, and before I could relate to these conversations and I would say, oh yes, come back. But now when you say this, and I remember that yes, there was in my past, yes, I could relate to this, but now when you say this, it doesn't make sense. It
Correct.
doesn't make sense to me that it is not, I mean, if I could say, is it not true? Like, it doesn't come and go because you're always here. So I understand you say that because we assume that way, or we feel that it comes and goes, and but even in the whatever may happen, but you are always here. You are never, nothing happens. Like as I was, the whole day passed by today. It's evening now, 9 o'clock. So I was doing many work, physical, this cooking, and then working on computer like this, and body was tired, and I could feel the tiredness, tension, tiredness, and everything. But I was working. There was no. I could see that, but still I continued working because I did not have space to stop. And now when I sit with you, and then there's a rest comes in the body. But I cannot say that at any point of time I was not there. I was always there, even in the.
Yes.
So
Beautiful. Yes.
when you say this, that then comes and goes. So you, without effort, you are always here. I mean, you cannot do anything about anything. It's just you are always here.
Yes.
It is.
Whatever experience you are having now, whatever you are understanding, seeing, being now, is here for your benefit. This is the true nature of life as we live it. Whatever life offers you at this moment, this is your true teacher. This is your true guru. Whatever insight you are experiencing at this moment, whatever understanding you are having, this is what is necessary for you here now. But whatever understanding or insight you can have with the mind, understand that it is moving and changing, and that when the heart opens, it will become ever expanding. This is not to say that the truth is constantly changing. This is only to say that the life of the mind is constantly changing. If you come to understand the truth of who you are, then the recognition that nothing is ever happening, that this appearance of change is happening only in the mind, will become the way you are in the world. Now you can dance any dance, because it is not my dance. It is just the dance of being consciousness, the lila, the play of being consciousness. You can't claim any ownership over any state, thought, insight, or truth. This silence of being is the only truth there is, and you are always that. In this recognition, you are not only free to dance whatever dance you dance, you also set everyone else free to dance their dance. And you can, if you choose, step into their dance and dance with them wherever they are and whatever the music is. By doing this, somehow they are able to begin to dance the dance of the self. No matter where they started from. This is the life of the great ones. To dance with everyone who comes in the recognition that all that is here is the self. So there's another message on the chat. It just says touch and go. What is the meaning of this, John?
Activate. It wasn't your first answer about letting go of the mind stuff coming or the conditioning. Just touch and go. It was another way.
Yes.
So
Yes.
you see it, you touch it, but then you touch and go. So it's
Yes.
a short
Beautiful.
and sweet formula that the English language has so many compared to the French. In French, it's usually longer, so it's not touch and go anymore.
Yeah. It's engagement of the mind,
Yeah.
isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Stanley asks, do we need their permission to step into their dance? First of all, let me say, there is, in the same way, nothing is ever happening. There is no one else. So all of these things, all of these distinctions are conceptual distinctions only. But at a certain point, as we become clearer in our understanding, I am the self, we still feel that there is a self and an other. In the teachings of Advaita, this is feeling this, knowing this sense that there is an I and a you. This is the piece of knowledge conceptually, which tells us that we need to keep doing the inquiry. Because what disappears in the culmination of sadhana is this whole distinction, I and you. Now there is only this. And in that space, there is only one dance. So, as long as there is this mental or conceptual thought or belief, do I need to ask permission? Yes. The reason I say this is not because they are separate from you, but because you are coming from separateness. So if the thought rises in your mind about anything in your life, do I need to ask permission in relation to another? The answer is yes. Once you recognize, I am that self, being, consciousness, this one, if there seems to be another, this one is my own, then what would you ask permission of? From whom? You see? You're welcome, Stanley. You see, separation is not the nature of truth. That is the nature of mind. So this is what I'm saying. As long as you feel this, you're in your mind. So act accordingly. Know that you're in your mind. And and remember that this is only an indicator of one thing, and that is there is still some sadhana to do for the full recognition, of truth, being, consciousness, and bliss. All of these concepts disappear once you have realized that which is aware is here now. You know, it's been true throughout history, throughout the way of being, that these concepts that we use here can often be mistaken as having some meaning, which has something to do with some other concept that's called enlightenment. And that what we are doing here and in our sadhana is that we are absorbing knowledge in the way that we absorb knowledge about engineering and mathematics and other things. And that at some point, this will be the root cause for some experience, which is termed enlightenment or awakening. These concepts that we talk about here serve only one purpose, and that is to keep the attention, if you will, pointed toward that which cannot be explained, that which can only be. So the concepts only have a usefulness to a certain point. At some point, each of you will naturally be willing to step off the cliff of concepts and enter the space of being. Whenever you are ready, there's no rush. Eventually you will get there. Because you are already here. This is why it's been, as we've evolved as a satsanga over the last couple of years on Zoom, we always begin with a period of silence. We enter that space together because it's in the space of silence in the recognition that which is aware here now. It's in this space that an aha type of moment or an awakening moment can happen. Everything else that we do afterwards in the conversations and so on is to share our experience of what this sadhana feels like for us at this moment. But the ways that we express ourselves and the way that the concepts that we used, they are never the full story because they exist in mind. But for many of us, we can see that these concepts and this sharing, it causes that opening of the heart to happen a little at a time or in one big bang. Different for every person. You know, there is not one sadhana. There are as many different kinds of sadhana as there are beings. Each being opening the heart as they are able to, some using the mind, some going directly to the heart. What we do here is try to provide some kind of support for each and every one of you to know that your process as you experience it is true and valid, that you are loved and supported, and that as being, consciousness, and bliss, you are truth itself. Paradoxical, but the meaning of concepts is to move beyond concepts, using concepts. Someone said to me this past week that they had come to realize that in some way, and this is what I heard, so we just leave it at that, that in some ways what they knew and what they were experiencing now was that all of their strategies, spiritual, emotional, psychological, and so on, were failing. And that when that recognition is very strong, there's this almost this sense of depression or falling into a black hole kind of a feeling that is happening. This, my friends, is the failure of conceptual thinking. The great joy of this moment is that this is also simultaneously the falling into the heart of being. Because we cannot get to the heart of being through conceptual thinking. So all of our strategies in the mind, even the strategies around enlightenment, eventually they fail. And there's nothing left to do but fall into the heart. This can sometimes be very painful. It can look like depression. It can look like self-loathing. All sorts of things come up for people. But the great beauty is there's a recognition on a deeper level that to go back to those old strategies cannot happen. So there's a great willingness that comes to just keep falling with awareness. As Jean said, using touch and go, so that whatever comes is seen, that's the touch, clearly, and then it's let go. This is falling through the space of awareness into the heart of being. This is what it feels like for many, many people. So continue. All is well. Your life is exactly where it needs to be at this moment. Keep falling. All right. Om Trayambakam yajamahe sugandhim pushtivardhanam urvarukamiva vandanam mrityor mukshiyamamritawa swaha bhuva bhu om sat jung hang om. Namaste. Much love to you all. See you again soon.